How did you meet your best friend? I've always loved asking this question because it usually is answered one of two ways. An oddly specific story or, I don't really remember. I was in 7th grade when I met Blake, and from the moment we met, we were pretty much inseparable. We did everything together. When the weekend came around, we would hang out from Friday afternoon after school to late Sunday evening, and when we weren't together in person, we would play Xbox together every night of the week. And I even joined a swim team to hang out with him. And I hate swimming. From 2nd grade to our senior year, we had the same relationship for those 10 years. But when we graduated from high school, everything changed. Blake had decided to go to a school near Cleveland, and I decided to join the military out of high school. When he left for school, I left for basic training in Texas, and for the next 3 months, I had no contact with my friends, my family, and I thought that when I got back, everything would be the same. Especially with Blake. But unfortunately, I was wrong. After I got back, things seemed pretty normal between Blake and I. I enrolled at the University of Toledo and he kept going to school as well. And although we weren't going to the same school and living 10 minutes away from each other, we still stayed in touch. But after a few months or so, around this time, is when I really started to make my faith my own. I was attending and involved in my church. I got involved in a small group and I loved it. Fellowship with God and other believers quickly became a priority in my life. However, around the same time, Blake had started getting into things I wasn't necessarily comfortable with. And I bet you can sort of see where this is going. Of course, naturally, I tried to reach out to him. I encouraged him to attend a small group with me. And unfortunately, because I was young and sort of immature in my faith, I didn't always go about that conversation with love and gentleness. And when I was pushing him to come to church with me, I was actually pushing him away from myself and ultimately God. Of course, that wasn't my intention at all, and it was actually quite the opposite. But because of my approach to the situation, I actually ended up damaging our friendship. And for the next 5 years or so, our relationship wasn't the same. We never stopped being friends, but we didn't really talk to each other. We started to slowly drift apart. While I continued on my spiritual journey with God, he took a very different path. We didn't see each other anywhere near as much, and it was really a difficult time for our friendship. And maybe you've had an experience like this. Maybe you had a friend who used to be a Drake kind of guy.
Sometimes we laugh, sometimes we cry, but I guess you know now.
And now he's a Luke Bryan kind of guy. Maybe you know a girl who used to be so shy in middle school and now she's super outgoing and she knows everyone and talks to everyone.
Excuse me, woo, little fella. Hello.
Maybe you know someone who went from being a jerk to being a sort of nice person.
Nah, you've changed, man.
Maybe you yourself would admit that you have become drastically different than you were a couple years ago. And if you've answered that question with, well, obviously, everyone changes, then congrats, you've gotten it down. On one hand, it's cool that people can become different. On the other hand, it can be kind of strange. But no matter how you feel about it, this is always true. People change. Again, people change. We all believe this, except when we don't. Here's what I mean. When it comes to people's bad qualities and traits, we rarely believe that they'll change. It seems impossible. We think things like, my coach is a jerk, and he's always been a jerk, and he will always be a jerk. My sister is an absolute mess, and she's going to continue losing things and forget things and just be a general disaster. My dad will never not have a bad temper. The guy at school will never not be a bully, and the girl will never not be a stoner. When it comes to the things about the people we don't like, we don't believe that they can become different people. But if we're all being honest, we will feel the same way about ourselves. Think about it. Do you have something that you wish you could change about yourself, but you don't feel like you can? I'm not talking about your height or your eye color. I'm talking about things like, maybe it's an addiction or a bad habit you can't get rid of. It's something you know, or at least a thing you should stop, but you don't feel like you could ever stop. Maybe you tried to stop before and you did a good job for a while, but then you found yourself back on the same old place. And now you think, forget it. What's the point of even trying? Maybe it's a situation thing. Like you have people who really frustrate you, and eventually you find yourself blowing up and losing your temper, and you wish that you didn't struggle so much with your anger, or you wish you didn't say the stuff you say when you're angry. Or maybe there's someone that you're extremely jealous of, and you wish that you felt differently, but you don't. And you don't feel like that's ever going to change. Maybe it's a label. Maybe there's something that you've done, a mistake that you carry with you, and you feel like people see you a certain way, and there's no way that you're ever going to change that. Or you feel like you're in a category, like people like you are always going to fill in the blank. I mean, if we had a magic button that allowed us to change something about ourselves, we'd all love to make it different, wouldn't we? But unfortunately, no such button exists, at least not on Amazon. I've looked. So sometimes we just feel powerless when it comes to certain things about us. Not to pour on more bad news, but here's what makes this even worse. There are already things about our circumstances that we can't make different. You can't choose who your parents are or where you live. You don't control how much money your family makes or what assignments your teachers give you. You can't even change your age. So when you already have a bunch of other things you can't control, it's hard to feel like you can control the things you struggle with. If you're anything like me, after a while, you're tempted just to give up. We all do it. And by the way, there's a quick and easy way to know you've given up. You don't even have to think about it. Just ask if you've used these phrases lately about yourself or someone else. It is what it is. That's just who I am. Maybe you say it differently, but the idea is the same. It is what it is, and I am who I am. Nothing can really change. And that leads us right back to a guy we've been talking about for a while now, Zacchaeus. For the last month or so, we've been talking about a dude named Zacchaeus. He was a bad guy with a bad reputation, and despite all that Zacchaeus had done, Jesus shocked the crowd and went to Zacchaeus' house. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." Luke chapter 19, verse 7. Hold on. Think of a huge celebrity, the most famous and awesome one you can think of. Now imagine this person came to your school and picked out the bully at your school and said, "Let's go hang out. I'll mentor you and spend time with you." And would you be like, "What? How is that even possible?" That's kind of like what was happening here with the crowd. They're like, why in the world would Jesus go hang out with that guy? Of course, they muttered it. It felt crazy. Now imagine being Zacchaeus. You're a tax collector who cheats your own people out of their money. Nobody likes you, and I mean nobody. And there's a man that some people call the Messiah, and some people call the great teacher, and he's legit famous. A massive crowd is gathered just to get a glimpse of him, and he chooses you. He doesn't yell at you. He doesn't tell you all the ways you have to change. He knows who you are. But more than that, he sees who you could be. And it would be jolting, right? It was. And look how Zacchaeus responded. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Luke chapter 19, verse 8. It's awesome that Zacchaeus took this step to repay people. But this outward step was really just a reflection of what already took place in his heart. Something happened to Zacchaeus in the moment Jesus spoke to him. That's when it became personal. Jesus saw who Zacchaeus could be, and it helped imagine a different future. When someone believes you can be different than who you are right now, it changes things. When someone sees your potential and not just your mistakes, it helps you believe change is possible. That's what Jesus did for Zacchaeus. And he sees potential in you too. Think about it. Jesus was God. He walked the earth to give people a picture of what God is like. And Jesus showed us in his interaction with Zacchaeus that we don't have to change in order to be okay with God. No matter what we struggle with, he sees who we can become. Think of it this way. It's personal because Jesus knows your potential. Look at what happens next. Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, and because this man too is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." Luke chapter 19, verses 9 through 10. I love that line. Today salvation has come to this house. That day radical change came to the life of Zacchaeus. And why? Because Jesus walked right up to him and treated him like he had the potential to be different than what he had always been. And that's what Jesus does. He pursues people and offers his help and strength so that they can change. Because of Jesus, anyone can radically change. In the areas of life where you and I want to be different, we can start by looking to Jesus. Years after Jesus walked the earth, the Apostle Paul said it this way: "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here." 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 17. A new creation is found in Christ. In other words, change happens throughout the work of Jesus. We can try to muster up all of our own strength to try and make ourselves different, but why rely on our own strength when we have access to Jesus? Why not partner with Jesus to make changes? He sees potential in us. He's more powerful than us. Zacchaeus didn't wake up one day and just decide, hey, I want to change. He encountered Jesus, and it became personal when he realized that Jesus saw potential in him. Jesus saw he could be different than he had always been, and then he was. So what does this mean for us? It's so easy just to go through life assuming you can't change, and neither can anybody else. But that simply isn't true. Zacchaeus became a different person. When Jesus treated him differently, he changed into someone the people around him could hardly recognize. And that's just as possible for you and every single human around you. Just know this: making a change is so much more likely to happen when you have support. Don't walk through your journey alone. Consider sharing what you'd like to change with your small group. Or if you don't feel comfortable opening up in your small group, try talking with your small group leader. Or reach out to a trusted adult and let them know what's been going on. Jesus sees potential in you that you may not see in yourself yet. So does your leader, and maybe even some of your friends. That's why we meet in groups each week. So you'll have people who are close to you who will know you personally enough to see past where you are now and help you imagine the future that God has in mind for you.